Okay, it's recording. So now we have seen, so many problems that can happen with use effect. So very powerful API, but also very dangerous, I would say. And you need to be actually careful in using it, okay? Because it's easy to create loops and so on, which of course are not welcome at the exam, but typically you will discover them before, okay? Because basically your application stops working because it keeps executing code and doesn't respond to user input anymore, okay? Or just stops executing the code if React think it needs to stop the execution, okay? And but anyway, you cannot do without the use effect, so you have to learn it, okay? So just try to follow our advices when you need to use the use effect. This is, by the way, one of the things we will check at the exam, okay? Because it's one of the most interesting places to understand how your program works, okay? Because this is a synchronous code that you want to execute depending on some conditions, something that changes in the application. And so it really helps to understand how the application works, especially for us, me, my colleague, and so on, that will be at the exam and know nothing about your application. Okay, so just be, careful, but everybody will be careful for sure, but try to use it in a way that is not too complex also for you, because, when you write too much code that depends on conditions and changing values and so on, it starts to become difficult, okay? So we will always try to go for the easiest solution when we write our own code. So if you can avoid the use effect, it's fine. We don't really count, how many use effects you used in your code. Actually, yeah, we can show it because I searched for the use effect. But the less you use it is probably the best. Okay, you cannot really avoid everything because you need to load something in the beginning, for instance. But if you have other options to trigger execution of the code, like event handler, that's fine. Okay, and now actually we are going to see stuff like this. Okay, so we need to add actions to our application, like add, edit, and delete. Okay, these are typically initiated by the user. Okay, it's not about something that changes inside the application. It's a user interaction, so it's an asynchronous event that happens and that runs an event handler. Okay. Typically on click, okay? On click and something happens. You click on an add button, update button, save, delete, and so on, okay? The event handler does not need the use effect, okay? The use effect is just for listening for change on values, okay? So sometimes it's convenient. I don't want to say it's useless in this case. But, when you have an event, the event triggers the execution of some code. And in this code, you can do whatever you want, whatever is allowed in JavaScript. In particular, you can change states, React states, and you can also run fetch calls. So you can run requests towards the server. Fetch is a global function that is available anywhere in your scripts, okay? Just remember, it gives you it returns a promise. So either you use the await, and then you write the rest of the code, or the .n and you put the callback. Okay, the only thing you need to remember. But again, you have no restriction on what you are going to do after the await or in the .n. Okay, you can set the state and so on. So actually, let's see what happens here. Let's say we need to implement the add functionality to our application. Like in your lab, you want to add the film. Okay? At the moment, you did it, but without the interaction with the server. So actually, you just have the first part. You do a set of the state, and you have a new state with a new item inside. Of course, you want to update the information on the server as well. So, I mean, for sure, we need to run a fetch. Fetch, which actually send a request to the server. Typically, the add is a post, okay? Because we need to add an item to a collection. You remember when we talked about the APIs, that was week 3 and 4, okay? Go back in the slides, in the recordings in case. Add an item to a collection. It's a post HTTP method. So we need to tell the fetch that we want a post and not a get. Just open the bracket, method post. We need to put a body, usually, with the element. The element, I mean, this is very simple here, but it's typically something that has been converted in JSON. JSON stringify an object or something like this, because we want to talk JSON between server and client. And that's fine. And what's the problem here? This is the dehydrating that we mentioned before. So taking a state, a new object in the client, and send it to the server. So synchronize the server with the client. So the point is that here we are doing two operations. The previous one, we set a new state, and then we are asking the server to synchronize with the new state here, okay? So the element is added here in the list, and it's sent to the server as well. But, I mean, what happens to the application if we write things in this way? The state is updated, right? So actually, we change a state in React, React re-renders and shows the new element, right? So the element is added to the list, like to your list of films in the lab, to the list of answers in our example. And then you send a request. I mean, actually, at the same time, you start the request toward the server. And if everything goes fine, we are happy. But what happens if the server says the element cannot be added? We have a desynchronized state, a different state on the client and on the server. So it's sort of risky, dangerous to do the operations in this way, okay? I mean, it's a possibility. Optimistic state update, it also has a name. It's very optimistic. It means that we hope that the operation does not fail. I mean, in any way, like the network connection is working, the server is receiving the request, is processing the request, the database is not full, it can add the element and so on, okay? A lot of things. But that's a possible approach. I mean, this approach basically favors user experience. You add something, and this element, this something is shown, okay? It's like when you are typing in the Google Doc, right? And then in the background, it updates on the server. And when something goes wrong, something is written on the top or somewhere. I mean, be careful. It has not been saved yet. Okay? So this is a possible approach. But, I mean, another approach, a safer approach, could be, okay, well, let's send first the request toward the server. So fetch first, okay? Then wait for the answer from the server. And you see that we wait because we use the await here, okay? Without the await, we have the .then of the promise. And the rest of the code is in the .then or after the wait. And if everything goes fine, so the response is okay, okay, we proceed updating the state in the client. So we actually show the new state in the client, okay? Which is fine, okay? So this is more, let's say, safer from the point of view of having the two states, client and server, synchronized correctly, but it's a bit less convenient for the user because it has no immediate feedback, okay? So actually, when you implement your actions, you need to decide which kind of path you want to follow, okay? A more risky one, but more friendly for user interaction. I mean, in the sense that it immediately show the result to the user, or a safer one, make the user wait until the operation has been correctly performed on the server. Okay. I mean, my preference is probably for the second one, but just for showing you all the options, okay, we will try to have a mix of the two. Okay. So how can we have a mix of the two? Well, let's try to keep the first option, so an immediate update of the user interface, but I mean, saying in some ways to the user that the update is temporary, so it's not really final yet. Okay? So you see the code. I mean, this is another code like fetch API items, and you want to add something. So there's an add button, and this add button adds an element. So actually, we set a list of the previous list of items plus the item, but we write temp or something, an icon, whatever you like, near the newly added element. Okay? And then we immediately ask the server to update its state with the post. And if the response is okay, get items is a fetch of the list of elements from the server. So in short, we send two requests to the server. A request to add, and then after the add is finished, we request an update from the server. Why do we request an update? So the current list of items from the server. Because in this way, we can also mitigate the problem that we saw before, the end client's problem, right? So with this, where is this? The better than nothing solution. We interacted with the server. Okay, that's a good time for reloading information. The user is expecting that something is changing, and I would say the user is also keen to wait for a while for the response from the server because it initiated an action. Okay, so it's really good time to refresh the information from the server. Okay, so I would say this is probably the best approach because it combines both the advantages and leaving back the disadvantages of the two solutions. So an immediate update of the user interface, but with something that says it's temporary, waiting for the confirmation from the server, and then an update from the server to keep the state of the client synchronized with that of the server. Okay? And note that when you load something from the server, in the end, you will have this set list, which is actually the same set that you did in the beginning, but actually, you see, it doesn't depend on the previous state here. It just override the state. So actually, it keeps the server state synchronized with the client state. So basically, the client state will be exactly the same as the server state. Okay? So that's a possible solution. And also you see that, I mean, this instruction of making things temporary is not really fundamental anymore. Okay? Because, I mean, if I'm going to refresh the state of the list from the server anyway at the end of the operation of the addition operation, I mean, it's just an issue of user interface for the user, right? So showing the user that something is being processed, is being done. Okay? Okay, so this is the kind of approach that we are going to follow now that we try to make some modifications to our example in the question and answer example that we are carrying on since the beginning of this course. Okay? So just keep in mind the scheme is probably the best one also for the exam. Okay? I mean, for the exam, it's not really required that you show this temporary state. Okay? It's nice, but I mean, I would say you can get the maximum even if you are not implementing this temporary state. Okay? Important thing is that you handle the modification operation correctly, add, update, delete, and then you do a refresh, okay, reloading the information from the server. Be careful, reloading information, it doesn't mean you need to reload everything every time, okay? I've seen solutions at the exam where basically everything you touch, everything is reloaded. Not really the best solution, okay? Because here we have just one list, it's fine, okay? The only list, we reload the list. But if you have many lists, maybe there are details and so on, you don't have really to, transfer the whole database you have on the client, on the server, on the client, because I touch just one thing in some place, okay? Just reload what was supposed to be affected, okay? The list of items, the object in case you updated an object and so on, okay? It's up to you to decide what is readable, what is not, and also it depends a lot on the context, on the logic of your application. If you don't care if somebody else has modified other items in the list, probably it's not needed to. You don't need to reload all the other items in the list. If it's like a map before, the map of seats I was telling you before, you would like to have the updated map, of course, reload the entire map. That's fine, okay? It makes sense. So it's really dependent on the logic of the application. That is what you need to put in the exam. That's your contribution, and what you should practice to do while developing code for applications, okay? Okay, good. Let me just finish this block of slides. There are just 3-4 slides, but I think they come at the correct moment, and then we will just, play with the code, okay? Now, basically, we have seen all the hooks that we need to see in React. As you know, there are many more hooks. We already saw some in some slides, but we are not going to see them. Sorry for that, but I would say maybe it's better because, you don't need to use them again for the exam, but they are just for efficiency and for simplifying things, okay? Something in more complex applications. So, quiz, okay. What's the magic behind the hooks? The use state. How can the same function, you see, use state, true, 0, view, but I could have 3 use state 0, okay? How can the first one return the first state, and the second one return the second state, and the third one return the third state? How does it work? I'm telling you, not because we really care how they implemented things in React, but because there's a constraint we need to follow when using the hooks. Well, actually, the answer is that every time you use a functional component, like any component we saw in this course for React, React associates an array of hooks to the component. If there are no hooks, the array is empty. If you start using hooks like useState and useEffect, every slot is filled in with the hook, okay? The type and the content that belongs to the hook. So you do a useState, the first element in the array of hooks is filled in saying, okay, it's a state hook, and the value is this one, okay? And it will change and so on. I provide the function, and the function will change this value in this item number 0 in the list of items, the hooks associated with this component, and so on, okay? So each time you call a hook, a new slot is used. If it's the first time, it's allocated, and if it's not the first time, it takes the state for the state. In case of the useEffect, it takes the function that needs a cleanup, that runs the cleanup, and it checks if the previous value has changed, and so on. Okay, it does what is required for each hook. Okay, so there is a consequence. So, and the consequence is that React must know which functions may host hooks, and actually only function components in React can host hook, well, plus custom hooks, but doesn't really matter here. When you make a new functional component, React knows it has to associate an array of hooks. And also, second, probably more important, hooks must always be called in the same order each time a component renders. So it means that when you write hooks, useState, useEffect, and so on, in the code of a component, you cannot just put them inside an if or for and so on. Okay? Because they have to be called in the exact same order each time you use them. Okay? But I would say this is not a problem. You just need to be aware of this limitation. Okay? Just don't use if around hooks or for to make more hooks. Okay? At least if you do it, I mean, it should be always the same order and the same number. Okay? So, I mean, probably it's better not to do that. Okay, so remember this because it's important. React has no way to map hooks to the names of the variables and so on. I mean, just because of the order in which you call the hooks. And it is also why in the debugger, we will see it in a minute when you start an application, you only see hook number 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. You don't see the name because there's no name inside the hook. It's just the order. Okay, in the debugger, you remember. I will show it to you in a minute. Okay, so only call hooks at the top level of your component. That is more than enough for this course, but in general, for basically any application, I would say any simple application, that's more than enough. Do not call hooks inside loops, conditions, nested functions, and so on. Okay, put it in the beginning, and that's fine. Only call hooks from React function, means from function components, and you're done. Okay? So let's see the example. So, now I need to open code, and I start from the code that I just published, I think was yesterday evening. Okay, but it's actually the same code from which we finished on Monday, so nothing really new. I just created a new folder, so it's easier for you to browse inside the code. Okay, so node index, that's a server. Yes, let me sure I'm working in the correct directory, and that's a client, npm run dev. Okay. Oops. Okay. So let me show you what the hooks. I was talking about the hooks. Here you see up, and you see the hooks here. You see they have no name. State, 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 effect. Okay, 4 hooks. They know it's a state hook, a second one is state hook, third one is state hook, fourth is an effect hook. Okay? Of course, the content is different. The effect hook has the value of the dependency array, probably this is empty, and the callback to run, and so on. And the state has some content that is the value, okay, that is stored inside the state. Okay? But there's no name. It's not that like, I mean, they are not able to write a name here because, I mean, well, it would be difficult in case, but I mean, that's because actually hooks are just a slot in an array. Okay, let's have a look at the code. Up is here. You see, first states are first hooks are 3 states, and the fourth is a use effect. Okay. Just put them at the top for your convenience, okay? But for sure, don't put them inside the if, for, or conditional expression because you need to call them every time in the same exact order, okay? I mean, not really a difficult rule to follow. Basically, everybody at the exam follows this rule, also because otherwise things don't work, okay? So you know it before coming at the exam. Okay, but this is the reason. And so now we need to start thinking, okay, how to modify this program, okay? So, I mean, this program works as we left it last time. I mean, let me reload the application. The only thing it does now is, I mean, taking the old code, of course, that's a state for the array and so on, but it does the loading of the question. So there's a question loaded. So what is written here in the top, and the answers, okay? A bit slow because I have this delay on the server, but I mean, it doesn't really matter, okay? Everything is transferred in JSON format. That's what we want for the exam as well, but again, many applications in the real world use JSON format, so actually it's good to learn in any case, okay? And it's very simple for us because we have software that handles the JSON very easily for us, okay? Okay, so basically now, you see, I can delete stuff, I can edit stuff, let me see, file, save, and so on. But what's the problem? If I reload the application, I go back to the initial state, right? Because nothing is saved on the server. Only the initial list, so the list of the answers is saved on the server. So I would like to connect the three main methods of the CRUD operation, so create, update, delete, to the server, okay? So I would say let's start with the easy one, okay? The easy one is the delete, because you just issue a fetch, okay? And actually, you don't really have to move between pages and so on, okay? Actually, there's not that much difference between the three, but in any case, let's start from that one, okay? So basically, I click on the delete. I have an event handler, because I make a click. I don't change the page, so there's no router involved and so on, right? Just click. You saw it before. Now it changes the state inside the client, okay? So it does a set state. I don't remember what's the name, but it's set answers, okay? It's an array. That's the array of answers. And there will be a delete answer. Answer list. It takes the old list. Remember, the state depends on the previous one, okay? Takes the old list, filters everything which is different from the ID that is passed, that is the ID I want to delete, it is kept. And the filter creates a new array, okay? That's the rule for the state, for using the set state. Make sure that React re-renders because I provide a new array, okay? Good, and it's provided automatically by the filter. Okay, so basically, I attach some code here, right? So what I should do? I mean, just as we did before, right? I mean, we have a fetch, and so we can simply call the server. Well, provided that is implemented in the server, but I already provided you with the API written both on the server and on the client. Let me check. Okay, so the server is the one that is, I mean, the full version. So it's not just returning the answers and the question and so on, but it has also the API for doing everything else. So delete API answer ID. Actually, that's the same code that we already developed in week 3 or 4, okay? The stuff that is already on the Git, I just moved it from, I mean, not moved, copied from the week 4, I think, to here, okay? So it's ready to be used. We already tested it, actually, with the React client, REST client, sorry. The REST client, you remember that you come here and you test it. Okay, there's no number 10, it's fine, but you can test it, okay? So we just need to use it. To use it, I told you, well, it's better to have these APIs with the fetch in a separate file. I mean, not really required, but very, very useful, so I encourage you to have it. And in the interest of time, I already provided you the file with all the APIs written here. I mean, all the calls with the fetch to the server written here. So there's a function delete answer to which I can pass an ID, okay? And it will call, well, the basic URL, which is actually what is written there. Localhost 8001/API /answer/ID that comes from a parameter of a function. So I just need to call this function from the event handler of the click to make a an HTTP request to the server happen, okay, in the browser. Very simple, right? fh URL. Actually, just be careful that you need to say that you want to use the method delete, okay? So actually, by default, fetch does a get. So you need to pass an object that says what to do if it's not a get. There's no body. The delete has no body. No need to have a body. And then actually there's a then, because you remember the fetch returns a promise. So we attach a callback, and when the promise is solved, it means the server has returned something to the browser. We get the value, which is a response object. I hope you remember when we discussed about the fetch. It's a response object. The response has some properties, .ok. Okay, response.ok. Actually, that's what we chose to do, resolve null. We resolve the promise. Actually, there's not really anything we need to say to the code calling us. Because, the delete was fine. The promise is resolved. It means the delete was successful. That's the meaning of this code, okay? So I put null here. You can put undefined. You can put one, a string saying, okay, whatever. It just stays inside your code. We don't really care. It's not shown to the user, because what we show to the user needs to be put in the JSX in some way. And it means that typically it goes into a state, like the error message and so on. The rest is, just to handle the error. I think you can just mostly cut and paste this stuff. If you have a uniform way of handling errors, it's fine. And it's probably the simplest thing for writing your application. Not really so required for the exam, unless, of course, it's a condition you need to handle in your application. Like if you are booking something and things can go right or wrong, of course, you need to handle the wrong case correctly. Because somebody else has already booked the seat and whatever. Okay, but in case of deletion, you cannot really do anything. The only thing it can happen is probably the server cannot respond for some reason. But in this case, the fetch returns a rejected promise. Okay, like you disconnect the table. It takes a while to get this condition. Or maybe you have the server. It doesn't respond you with the correct JSON. Well, not really so common. Because the server is written by you. If you tested everything correctly, it should work. Okay, so always answer with the JSON, also in case of errors. So, use the correct, reasonable, let's say at least, HTTP status. If it's in the 200 series, it's okay. So this value is true. Otherwise, you can have, unauthorized, hopefully not an internal server error, but like 400 something that is unprocessable entity, whatever we showed a few weeks ago, and so on. Depending on what you sent, there's something that does not validate, like you have an ID which is not valid, and so on. But typically in normal usage of your application, this thing shouldn't happen. Okay, so if you're unsure, just start writing the basic stuff, and then test for the errors. Okay, but as I was saying to you before, for the exam, I would say, basic error handling is welcome, but you don't really need to handle everything that really can happen in any case. Okay, if it's specified in the text, it's normal to expect it from the normal usage of the application. Of course, it must be handled. So must be handled. Otherwise, let's say, it's sort of borderline. Okay, but once you do it one time, basically it can be recycled for every time. So try to get it right in the lab, and you're fine, and you're okay for the exam. Okay. And our example should be more or less okay, hopefully. Okay, so the only thing we need to understand of this code is this one. everything is fine, response okay, resolve null. So it's a resolved promise, and we go back in app. That means that we can write API delete answer with the ID, and it's a resolved promise. New line, yes. Then it's a resolved promise. Then what? Well, actually, I mean, then that's the point, right? Then actually, that's the first case we saw, right? You remember the slides? Actually, this is the case, right? We could stop. Not really a good solution. As I told you, it's optimistic state update, and if something goes wrong, but not, I mean, nothing can go so wrong in delete, but I mean, it's a nice moment, a good moment in which we can reload the information from the server, okay? So, as we saw here, okay, would be nice to reload the information from the server, okay? So, like in add, now we have delete, we update the state of the application, and then, well, we send the post. For us it's the delete, and then you see here get items. Well, we could do the same, get answers, okay? So load the information from the server, okay? And just simply set it when you get it, okay? So in principle, what we are doing here, it's enough, okay? We could even delete it then, okay? But in practice, as I told you before, since then later, maybe you have an application where multiple clients can act on the same data and so on, it's a good moment to do a refresh of what's stored on the server. Remember, we are, you're the only one programming your application, you're the only one using your application, so it may seem a bit waste of time, right? But these are web applications. At the exam, we expect that if we open a second client and we start interacting with two clients, everything works fine, okay? And at a certain point, we also tried to do that, okay? It depends a lot on the type of application, okay? If it's like a booking site, of course, you need two clients to test it. If it's a, let's say, like a shopping cart, probably you can just have a look at the code and you see that if things are right or wrong, okay? But if you really need to show, let's say, booking a seat somewhere is shown as booked in a second client, actually you need two clients to test it. And you're free, of course, to use two clients. You have two browsers, for instance, or you can use one browser and another tab in incognito mode, okay? So you can use them as if they were two clients. Just try to test your application in these conditions. So let's try to do the refresh, okay, in the simplest possible way. So what's the simplest possible way? Well, we have a callback, and actually we have an API, right? What's the get answer by question ID, right? And there is a question, which is a state above, okay, question. API get answer by question ID, okay? And then, without anything else, it's a bit useless, right? So let me write a bit better, okay? So let me write it here. Then we will modify this code later, okay? It's a bit ugly, right? And then you get the answers. Okay, that's different because it's more advanced. Answers, or let's answer list, okay? Set answers, answer list, okay? Let me see, we need a... Okay, no semicolon, right? So save. Okay, so we call the delete answer dot then, and we do a refresh. Okay, let's see what happens. Let's pray. I don't know. Okay, so that's the beginning, right? Okay, save. Start. So let's press the delete. Okay. Ooh, 404 answers. There's something wrong. Question not found. But you saw the delete has worked. Okay. So the delete was sent. See, delete localhost and so on. Okay. By the way, you also see the fetch, not the option, sorry. So there has been a pre-flight request. Okay, what we saw, what we said before. Okay, it's been done automatically by the browser. Let me see, by the way, before investigating what's wrong. Okay, header request headers. You see the origin. Okay, that's the origin. Inserted automatically by the browser. In our application, it will always be HTTP localhost 5173 because we will use the development server of React. When you put the code into production, this will be changed automatically by the browser because your application will be served by another server. And so you will have to adjust what you wrote on the server side. Actually, we wrote nothing at the moment, okay? On the server side, we have just a course that allows everything, as you did in the lab, okay? But later on, when we have the cookie, we will be forced to write localhost 5173, okay? Because we will not be allowed to allow anybody to use the APIs, okay? But now, again, we are developing. Just for testing, it's fine. Okay, let's see the response. The response headers, sorry. Response headers, access control allow origin. That's what we saw before for the course. And the value is the star, anything, okay? Because we didn't specify anything on the server side. But for the moment, it's okay. If you don't have it, I mean, nothing works as it happened in the lab, okay, to many of you. And then I'm not sure what happened about this API questions. Oh, object question. Yeah, that's you see, in the tab network, you can investigate most of the problems that are happening in your application. We will always have the tab open while testing your application at the exam because we need to understand what's going on. I mean, now we know we are developing the application, we know how it works, but we, at the exam, we don't know anything about your application. So we need to understand what the application is doing. The best place to understand what's happening is between the browser and the server, okay? Actually, so exploiting the browser inspection tools to understand what's going on the network, okay? So actually, I put the object and not the ID, right? I need to put the ID. So actually, question.id, okay? I cannot put an object here because this is supposed to be a number that then is taken by the function here in API that was already, that was already available the other time. Why? No. That expects an ID, simply, okay? Because it's concatenated to the rest of the URL, okay? So let's save and try again. So let's reload the application. Note that now we have 3 items, not 4. So the deletion was successful, okay? So if you open the database on the survey, you see there are 3 lines now, not 4, okay? Let's delete another one, okay? So let's try what happens. Click, okay, delete, options is fine, get, answer, this time is fine. response, it's only two answers now, because I delete another one, okay? So, I mean, the delete is mostly done, right? So, delete is easy. I mean, we could still try to get this nice behavior. I mean, to mark something as a temporary item and then make it disappear quickly. I mean, just waiting for the operation from the server to be carried out. I mean, the delete operation. But I think before that, I mean, just to, I mean, check, I mean, just to, I mean, remember, how do I restore the server? I mean, it's really basic stuff, but anyway, I mean, stop the server, copy the backup copy you have on the database, okay? Restart the server, you will see, I mean, now there are 4. When you start playing with delete, of course, you get everything empty quite quickly, okay? And now you have 4. That's the beauty of using the SQLite tree. That's why we want the SQLite tree. Just copy a file and you have restored your database, okay? Okay, good. But this is basic stuff. So now we would like to try to, you know, have this temporary indication in before the delete operation happens. Okay. Now delete operation happens quite quickly, right? So, but I mean, let me just try. Since I think we have time. We still have next lecture for finishing this example. Let's go to the delete. Where is the delete? Delete here. Okay. Res.json, you see that's the response sent by the delete. How do I delete the how do I delay the response of the server? There is already an example, but somebody of you tried in the lab, right? I mean, you have the set timeout. Just make sure you pass a callback. Okay. And let's see, 1000. Okay, save. Remember, you need to save the restart the server. So maybe it's better to start it with nodemon. Okay. So I don't forget in the future. So let me try again. Let's delete again. First item, just for convenience, so you can see it very well. You will see it will stay there for a while. Okay. Or no? Not sure. No, it disappears immediately, right? Yeah, it disappears immediately because we immediately update the current state, right? So click, but we are still waiting for the refresh from the server, right? But it disappeared immediately, like the second one. Immediately disappeared, okay? So, I mean, it's a balance that you need to find in your application. What is more convenient for you? You want to mark it as being deleted, okay? And waiting for an answer to the delete. You see, it has the turtle, so it's slow, right? Actually, it's not yet deleted. And if something goes wrong, I mean, I should keep it. Okay, so how do we mark it? I mean, we can write something else somewhere. I mean, I think the solution as that we will provide just you know, highlights the row of the table. That's a possibility. I mean, just for show, I would say. So we go to the answer component, the answer row. I think it's the answer row. Okay. And let me do a bit of copy and paste, right? I know you don't like it probably, but let's insert the class name. Class name. And use bootstrap classes, okay? Like there are table success, table danger, table warning, and so on to color the table, as for the buttons and so on. I mean, just discover this stuff when you need it. I mean, you just Google a little bit. Maybe you ask ChatGPT. I mean, there's nothing wrong in using these tools for simple stuff like this. So, what's the name? Status class. So, I mean, just calling it in a generic way. And now we do the copy and pasting. Because I want to recycle it also for the update and also for the add. Okay? So I'll do the modification only once, and we will reuse it for the other times. So yes, there is this stuff that basically takes a prop status, as we will see it. Okay, so the answer element status, if it's added, deleted, or updated, if default do nothing. Okay, so if I add, oh no, this is a server, doesn't matter. Okay, the client is fine. So let me delete this one. If the class is deleted, it will show it as a table danger. I think it's red. Okay. I will commit this part at the end of the lecture. Okay, so don't worry too much. Okay, so we need to add a property named status with the value deleted string to our state in app before doing the deletion. Okay, so this filter is not so suitable anymore. Okay, because actually I don't want things to disappear. I actually want to modify one thing. Okay, what is here? Okay, so basically we use a map instead of a filter because we want to keep the stuff, but just for one we want to make a modification. So set answer as before, answer list, arrow, okay, answer list map. So if the element, for the element, the ID is equal to yes, the ID of the parameter of the function, if yes, we return a new object, object assign the old object, and, oh no, sorry, a new object. Okay, we copy the old object, assign, wait, it took curly, okay. The old, and then an object that has a property that we say status equal to, what is deleted? What's the name? Deleted, okay. Otherwise, just the element, okay? The map returns a new array, so no problem for that. And that's all, right? Yes, let's try. So, let's restart the application, one never knows. Let's see what happens now. Hopefully, it works. You see, it becomes red, waiting for the answer of the deletion operation from the server. Then the red disappears. Why? Because we reload the list from the server. So we don't have to make it disappear by setting something, I mean, like an object and removing the property. Just reload the list from the server. Okay? So we synchronize the state with the server, which now has just one element left. Okay? But the important thing is that now you understand that what we show here in the slides, I mean, we could have written temp somewhere. But I mean, it's nice to have some visual clue that, you know, something is going to happen. Maybe you could have a loader or disable the button, show a bar, I don't know, whatever you think is appropriate. I mean, don't waste too much time on these things for the exam because we cannot really evaluate the graphical user interface, okay? So the way in which you do things, as long as it's reasonable, it's fine, okay? We don't really care that much I would say at all, but I mean, at least it should be usable, okay? Okay, so let me do the last test. So let's test it again, okay? Okay, and now to reset things, again, I have to go to the server. Oh, what's this stuff? I think I just don't know what happened. Server. It doesn't want to click on this. Maybe it's the window of the server. Exit. Okay. It had some problems. I don't know what happened. So week 10 React QA optimistic update server was GP, right? Node mon. So, and we restore the initial situation. Okay. So actually, you know that now we have some duplicate code, right? So get answer by question ID has been already done in another place, right? And then set answer, set answers. Where was it done? Actually here, right? And actually here it was also nice because it had the loading stuff, right? So it would be nice to have the loading stuff as well. Okay? So actually we could try to reuse this code and just call it from another place. Okay? But actually here, I mean, we have two options. Either we take this code and we put it into a separate function. We have a function to call, that's fine. Or maybe just to practice a little bit, since we have the use effect, we could have a variable that is just an internal variable of the application that says when set, so it's a state, when set, please reload the stuff from the server, okay? That's a possible option. I don't want to say it's the best option, but it's something that can be useful sometimes when the application grows in complexity, okay? And actually, I must tell you, I see it many times at the exam, but not because it's strictly required, because if you do things correctly in each event handler, you actually don't really need to use this approach. But just for practice, okay? Let's try to make this, I would say, small modification, okay? So we split the use effect because I don't want to reload the question as well, okay? Just for this reason, and also, you know, to show something for practicing and so on. That's fine. So let's split the use effect. So make two use effect. The first, as the original one, is just run with empty dependency array at component mount time. When app is loaded, it loads the question. And the second one, I mean, it could stay the same, but not really useful in this way. So. Okay, so just test the code. Sometimes test the code if you think it should work the same way. Yeah, it's already broken. Question ID is not defined. Okay. So actually, I used question ID. Yeah, question ID could be taken out. That's one possible. Yeah, probably the only option. Yeah, for the moment, let's take it out. We will, I mean, since the time is not that much, we'll just take it out. Okay. We will fix it later. I mean, next week. And then, I mean, this should work, right? We did nothing special. We have to use two use effects instead of one. It means that the two fetches are run in parallel. one will arrive first. I mean, we don't really care. Okay, they will set the different states. One is the question, one is the list of answers. Fine. Okay, so what can we do here? We can have an additional variable, okay, like dirty, okay, which is a state. I put it after or before. After. So here, const dirty set dirty. I call it dirty because it's like we are in a dirty state. I mean, not really synchronized, not really sure if it's synchronized with the server or not. That's why it's called dirty. Use state in the beginning. Well, let's put false for now, okay? I mean, any state is fine in the beginning. Because recall, the use effect runs in any case at loading time, okay? The callback runs in any case at loading time, regardless of the values of the dependency array. And then we go to the delete answer, then a callback, set dirty true, okay? No, okay, this way, right? Okay, so let's check if it works or not. You never know. So delete something. Okay, it works. Good. Good, because, I mean, we are almost over time. So, what's the difference between now and before? I mean, actually, the application works in the exact same way from the point of view of the user. It shows the same thing. It shows the red bar, waits for the operation to be successful, reloads the state, and the red bar goes away. Okay? The only thing that we modified with respect to the previous case is that now we trigger the execution of some side effect. So this stuff, get answer by questioning this. So get a list of answers by modifying a state that has been added to the application. And this state is in the list of dependencies of the use effect. Okay? So each time the component is rendered, React for the use effect checks if the value of the dirty has changed or not. Okay? And if it has changed, it runs the callback inside the use effect. Okay? And indeed, yes. Okay. Yeah, I think it's all for today. Okay, we will have one more lecture on this. I mean, just 1 hour and a half, not really 3 hours because it's really heavy. Oh yeah, that's the question. Yeah, indeed, you're right. I was thinking, indeed, something is missing, right? So yes, I would say set dirty false. Okay. Otherwise, dirty is true, right? Let's just check. Okay, you're right. That's what I was looking for. I couldn't get before. Right? You delete the first time, it works, right? You delete the second time, it doesn't work. That's why. Good, very good. Right? Because the state has to be changed. If nobody resets the dirty, the use effect is not run. Okay? So the deletion happens. The delete happens on the server because I'm sending the fetch and the server will do the delete. It's just rehydration, so reading the state from the server, that doesn't happen. Okay? So if we add this instruction, I think it should be fine. I check. We only have one possibility, so let's jump, very quickly. Yes. Come on, what's wrong? You see what happens when the server is not running, okay? So just wait till the end. We have no possibility of setting the timeout, sorry. So one is working, second one is working, okay? This is now something needs to be fixed. You see, there are two calls to the get for the list of answers, because every time the dependency changes, the callback is run. We cannot change this behavior. The only thing we can do is put an if here, like if dirty, we execute the operation. Okay? And this way, it will fix the double call to the server. Okay? And then it's really all. I know I think you have this seminar, right? It's probably, anyway, I'll fix it. I think it's useless to search for it now, right? Yeah. I'll fix it, okay? I promise I'll fix it. Okay, probably something. So, that's all for today, okay? We'll meet on Monday, we'll continue on this example, but I will commit the point at which we arrived today, okay? Thank you, and see you on Monday.